In a modest garage on the outskirts of town, Marcus Thompson works through another sleepless night. His weathered hands move with practiced precision over metal and composite materials, crafting something extraordinary. By day, he's a maintenance technician, struggling to make ends meet for his young daughter. But in these quiet hours, he's pursuing a dream born from a chance encounter with Sarah Chen, a former principal dancer whose career was cut short by a devastating accident. What begins as a simple act of kindness, building custom prosthetic legs for a stranger, evolves into something neither of them expected. Could two broken lives, brought together by fate and determination, find wholeness in each other? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn breaks over the city as Marcus Thompson's ancient pickup truck rumbles into the Riverside Apartments parking lot. The maintenance logbook sits heavy in his lap, its pages dog-eared and annotated with careful precision, a testament to the way he approaches everything in life. 6 years of fixing other people's problems are recorded in that worn notebook, each entry a reminder of the thin line he walks between staying afloat and sinking beneath the surface. "Morning, Mr. Thompson," calls Mrs. Henderson from her first-floor window, already wrapped in her floral robe and clutching her morning coffee. "That radiator's acting up again." "I'll check it first thing, Mrs. H," he replies, his voice carrying the warmth that's earned him the trust of every tenant in the building. It's the same gentle tone he uses with Emma, his 8-year-old daughter, who's probably still curled up in her bed at Ms. Martinez's apartment next door. The morning routine is a carefully choreographed dance of its own. Drop Emma at the neighbors at 5:30 a.m., arrive at work by 6, tackle the most urgent repairs before the day gets too hot. The building's ancient infrastructure ensures there's never a shortage of work. Leaky pipes, temperamental heating systems, stubborn garbage disposals. Each repair brings a small satisfaction, a tiny victory in a world that sometimes feels like it's held together with duct tape and prayer. His toolbox, passed down from his father, tells its own story. Each tool bears the marks of countless repairs, just as Marcus's hands carry their own history of calluses and scars. The younger maintenance workers who occasionally fill in for him rely on their shiny new gadgets, but Marcus knows the value of understanding the bones of a building, of feeling the rhythm of its systems. By mid-morning, the sun streams through the dusty windows of apartment 4B, where Marcus repairs a stuck window while stealing glances at his watch. Emma's school starts at 8:30, and Ms. Martinez always sends him a text when she drops her off. The message comes right on schedule. Emma safe at school, ate all her breakfast, still talking about that dance class. The dance class. Marcus's chest tightens at the thought. Emma had seen the flyer at school, beginning ballet Tuesday afternoons. The look in her eyes when she showed it to him still haunts him. $30 per lesson might as well be $3,000 when every spare penny goes toward keeping their small apartment warm and the cupboards somewhat full. During his lunch break, Marcus retreats to his basement workshop, a space carved out among the building's water heaters and electrical panels. Here, among the spare parts and tools, he works on his side projects, the little repairs and custom jobs that bring in extra cash. But lately, the workshop has become something more. In the corner, partially hidden behind an old tarp, sits his latest project, the beginnings of what he hopes will become something extraordinary. The afternoon brings more repairs, more friendly faces, more entries in the logbook. Mr. Chen in AFC needs his sink unclogged. The Patel family's AC unit is making that strange noise again. Through it all, Marcus moves with quiet efficiency, each task a step closer to picking up Emma from after-school care. When evening finally arrives, Marcus finds Emma waiting at Ms. Martinez's, homework spread across the kitchen table. Her dark, girls falling across her math worksheet. "Daddy!" she exclaims, launching herself into his arms. "Can you help me with fractions and guess what?" Jenny said her mom might know someone who could help me take dance lessons. Marcus holds her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. We'll figure something out, princess, he says, knowing he'll spend another night in the garage, working on projects that might make her dreams possible. But first, those fractions aren't going to solve themselves. Later, after Emma's asleep, Marcus will return to his workshop. The night hours are when he truly comes alive, when the quiet of the building allows his mind to wander beyond broken pipes and faulty wiring to possibilities that seem just out of reach. In these moments, surrounded by his tools and dreams, Marcus Thompson isn't just a maintenance man, he's a creator, an inventor, a father trying to build a better world for his little girl, one careful measurement at a time. The poster still hangs in Sarah Chen's living room, though she's moved it to the far corner where the afternoon shadows help obscure its presence. Rising Star leads Metropolitan Ballet's spring season, the headline declares, the words floating above a photograph of her mid-leap, body suspended in that perfect moment between earth and air. Sometimes, in the dark hours before dawn, she finds herself standing before it, fingers tracing the glass that protects a life that now feels like someone else's memory. 5 years ago, she had been preparing for her first season as principal. Dancer, 15 years of dedication had finally culminated in that moment, the announcement that would cement her place in the dance world. Sarah Chen, the girl who started ballet at 3, who practiced until her feet bled, who never took no for an answer, was about to become everything she'd dreamed of being. Her mother had kept every newspaper clipping, every program, every photograph. They fill albums that now gather dust in the spare bedroom, along with her collection of point shoes, each pair marked with the date and performance they'd been used for. The last entry reads, Final Rehearsal, February 15th, 2020. The next day, everything changed. The accident itself remains a blur in Sarah's memory. A taxi ride home after a late rehearsal, the screech of tires on wet pavement, the world spinning in terrible pirouettes. When she woke up 2 weeks later, the doctors spoke in gentle, measured tones about extensive damage, about microsurgery, about prosthetics. But all Sarah could think about was the spring season, now just 6 weeks away. Recovery became its own kind of performance. Physical therapy sessions replaced ballet classes, hospital corridors became her stage, and nurses served as her reluctant audience. Sarah approached rehabilitation with the same determination that had earned her the principal position. But some dances can't be mastered through sheer will alone. Now her days follow a different rhythm. She teaches online dance appreciation classes from her apartment, her computer camera carefully angled to show only her upper body. Her students, mostly retired adults looking to better understand the art form, don't need to know that their instructor watches ballet performances on mute because the sound of point shoes meeting the stage still brings tears to her eyes. The irony doesn't escape her that she's become even more intimate with the mechanics of movement, now that she can no longer dance. She studies the physics of balance, the engineering of prosthetic limbs, the way the human body compensates for loss. Her apartment has become a library of medical journals and dance theory books, an attempt to stay connected to the world that once defined her. The Metropolitan Ballet still sends her complimentary tickets to every performance. They pile up unopened. On her kitchen counter, each envelope a paper weight pressing down on her chest. The company's artistic director calls every few months, speaking hopefully about consulting positions, about teaching master classes, about staying involved in the dance community. Sarah always promises to think about it, both of them knowing she won't. It's the children she misses most, the young students she used to teach on weekends, their eager faces turned up toward her like flowers seeking the sun. Teaching had been more than just a supplementary income. It had been a way to pass on the joy that dance had given her. Now she can barely watch videos of children's recitals without feeling the phantom ache of movements her body can no longer perform. The maintenance request she'd submitted to the building manager sits on her coffee table, a reminder that life's mundane problems continue regardless of personal tragedy. The heating system in her apartment has been acting up, sending uncomfortable waves of hot air through the vents at random intervals. Under normal circumstances, she would have handled it herself. She'd always been practical that way, but now even simple household tasks require careful planning, and energy she can't always spare. Sarah moves to the window, her movements measured and deliberate. Below, early morning traffic flows through city streets like dancers, following invisible choreography. Somewhere out there, ballet studios are opening their doors. Dancers are lacing up their shoes. Dreams are taking flight. And here she stands, in an apartment that feels more like a museum of what was, waiting for a maintenance man to fix a heating system that, like her, refuses to function as it should. A notification pings on her phone. Another student enrolling in her online course. Looking forward to learning about the art of movement, the message reads. Sarah allows herself a small smile, bitter and sweet as dark chocolate. If only they knew how much she'd learned about movement since she lost the ability to dance. Emma's ballet slippers arrived in a second-hand box from the church donation center, scuffed pink satin with fraying ribbons that had seen better days. But to Emma Thompson, they might as well have been made of gold. She wore them everywhere. To breakfast, to bed, even trying to sneak them to school until Marcus gently explained why proper shoes were necessary for third grade. "Daddy, look!" She twirled in their small living room, arms raised in what she imagined was perfect ballet form. Jenny showed me first position and second. Her feet shuffled awkwardly on the worn carpet, but her face shone with pure joy. Marcus watched from the doorway, toolbox in hand, his heart performing its familiar dance between happiness and helplessness. The shoes had been free, but proper. Lessons remained a distant dream. Still, he couldn't help smiling at her enthusiasm. "Beautiful princess, maybe we can look up some videos online to help you practice." That morning, as Marcus made his way through his repair schedule, Emma's passion for dance kept spinning through his thoughts. When he reached apartment 7B, he barely registered the name on the work order, S. Chen, heating system inspection. The woman who opened the door sat in a wheelchair, her posture impossibly elegant despite her seated position. Something about her struck him immediately, a kind of quiet dignity that reminded him of his late wife. "Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming. The heat's been quite erratic." "Of course, Ms. Chen. I'll take a look at the system." As he worked, he couldn't help noticing the space around him. Dance posters adorned the walls, and a bookshelf held volumes about ballet and anatomy. But it was the photograph on the side table that caught his eye, a younger version of Ms. Chen in mid-performance, defying gravity itself. "You're a dancer," he said before he could stop himself. "Was," she corrected softly. Then, perhaps, seeing. Something in his expression, she added. "I teach dance appreciation now. Online classes." Marcus thought of Emma's second-hand slippers, of her makeshift ballet studio in their living room. "My daughter, she dreams of dancing, can't afford proper lessons, but she practices every chance she gets." Something shifted in Sarah's expression, a spark of interest breaking through her careful reserve. "How old is she?" 8. She wears these old ballet slippers everywhere. Probably breaks every rule of proper dance, but her heart's in it. Sarah wheeled herself to her desk, opened her laptop. "The heating system. Is it fixed?" "Yes, just needed some adjustment to the..." His voice trailed off as she pulled up. "A video of a ballet class. This is my beginner's course. It's mostly for adults, but..." She paused, seemed to be weighing something in her mind. "If your daughter would like to learn the basics, the proper positions, maybe I could..." "We couldn't." "Afford? No charge." Sarah's voice was firm. Sometimes teaching is its own reward. Besides, it would be nice to have a young student again. That evening, when Marcus told Emma about the offer, her squeal of delight echoed through their small apartment. She hugged her ballet slippers to her chest, dancing around the room. "A real teacher, Daddy, a real ballet teacher." They arranged for Emma to visit Sarah's apartment after school twice a week, during the hour before Marcus finished his maintenance rounds. Through the partially open door, Marcus would sometimes pause to watch their lessons. Sarah, despite her wheelchair, demonstrated arm positions with graceful precision, explaining the French terms with patient enthusiasm. Emma absorbed everything like a sponge, her natural exuberance tempered by a growing understanding of dance's disciplined beauty. But it was the moments between instructions that caught Marcus's attention. The way Sarah's face softened when Emma mastered a new position, the gentle corrections delivered with encouraging smiles, the shared laughter when Emma's enthusiasm sent her spinning off balance. In those moments, something more than dance was being transmitted between teacher and student, something that made Sarah's wheelchair seem less like a barrier and more like just another part of the dance. The basement workshop came alive at midnight, when the building above fell silent and Marcus could focus on the sketches spread across his workbench. His newly borrowed medical textbooks sat open beside engineering manuals, their pages marked with dozens of colored tabs, the margins of his drawings filled with calculations and notes, load-bearing ratios, stress points, flexibility requirements. Each detail represented another piece of the puzzle he'd committed himself to solving. The idea had come to him during one of Emma's lessons, watching Sarah demonstrate a port de bras. Despite her wheelchair, her upper body moved with such fluid grace that he could almost see the missing movements her legs would have made. That night, he'd started researching prosthetic limbs, beginning with basic designs and working his way through to cutting-edge prototypes. "Daddy, why are you drawing legs?" Emma had asked one morning, finding his sketches on the kitchen table. He'd been careless, too tired from another late night of research to properly hide his work. Marcus pulled his daughter close, considering how to explain. "Remember how Ms. Chen told you about ballet dancers rising up on their toes?" Emma nodded eagerly. "Well, I'm trying to help her dance again, but it's our special secret, okay? Like when we surprised Mom with breakfast in bed on her last birthday." Emma's eyes widened with understanding, then narrowed with determination. "I won't tell. Promise." She studied the drawings with new interest. "They look like robot legs, but pretty." "That's exactly what I'm going for, Princess." Marcus smiled, realizing his daughter had captured in simple words what he'd been struggling to achieve. A fusion of functionality and grace. The technical challenges were daunting. Standard prosthetic legs weren't designed for the extreme demands of ballet. He needed to create something lighter, more responsive, capable of supporting both fluid movement and explosive power. His research led him through countless medical journals, engineering forums, and dance anatomy texts. Every spare dollar went into materials, high-grade aluminum, carbon fiber composites, specialized joints. He took extra repair jobs on weekends, fixed neighbors' cars in the evening, sold his old motorcycle, the one luxury he'd kept from his pre-fatherhood days. The financial strain showed in subtle ways: store-brand cereals instead of Emma's favorite kinds, longer intervals between haircuts, one more patch on his work boots. The first prototype took shape slowly, built in stolen hours between his regular duties. Marcus applied the same meticulous attention he gave to the building's infrastructure to each component. His hands, accustomed to fixing practical problems, learned to shape materials with an artist's sensitivity. The legs needed to be more than functional. They needed to be an extension of Sarah's artistic expression. Some nights, when fatigue made his vision blur, he questioned his audacity. Who was he? A maintenance man with no formal engineering training, to attempt something medical professionals spent years perfecting, But then he'd remember Sarah's face when she watched Emma dance, the mixture of joy and loss in her eyes, and his determination would return. Emma became his unexpected assistant, sitting on a tall stool in the workshop, after homework, handing him tools and asking questions that often made him see problems from new angles. "If Ms. Chen wants to spin like in Swan Lake," she'd ask, "won't she need the legs to turn super smooth?" Such observations led to crucial refinements in his design. The project consumed his thoughts during the day. He found himself studying the way people walked, the subtle shifts of weight and balance that most took for granted. During Emma's lessons, he paid careful attention to Sarah's instructions about movement and weight distribution, mentally translating her artistic knowledge into engineering requirements. One night, working late on a particularly challenging joint mechanism, Marcus discovered Emma had fallen asleep on his old workshop couch, her ballet slippers still on her feet. As he carried her upstairs to their apartment, she stirred slightly. "Daddy," she mumbled, "when Miss Chen can dance again, will she be happy like in her picture?" Marcus thought of the photograph in Sarah's apartment, of the joy captured in that moment of flight. "I hope so, Princess," he whispered. "I really hope so." Back in the workshop, he made one final adjustment to the joint before calling it a night. On his workbench, illuminated by the harsh fluorescent light, the partially completed prosthetic leg gleamed with possibility. In his mind, he could already see Sarah rising from her wheelchair, taking her first steps toward reclaiming the art that defined her life. Whether his vision would become reality remained to be seen, but for now, in the quiet of his underground workshop, anything seemed possible. The stack of overdue notices on Marcus's kitchen counter grew taller each week, their red final warning stamps becoming a familiar sight. The building's new management company had brought changes that reached far beyond simple paperwork. Cost-cutting. Measures meant reduced maintenance budgets, shorter repair windows, and the constant threat of outsourcing to cheaper contractors. "We're streamlining operations," the regional manager had explained during their morning meeting, his crisp suit at odds with the dusty maintenance office. "Your position isn't being eliminated, but we are requiring all staff to be certified through our corporate program. The training costs will be deducted from your monthly pay." Marcus had done the math during his lunch break, adding another column to his already complex financial juggling act. The certification would cost 3 months' worth of prosthetics materials. His evening repair jobs barely covered rent, and Emma's basic needs as it was. The weight of it all hit him that evening, as he stood in the grocery store, calculating whether he could stretch their food budget by another week to cover the certification's first installment. His phone buzzed. A text from Emma's after-school program coordinator, "Payment reminder for this month's fees." Across town, Sarah faced her own professional crisis. Her online dance appreciation course enrollment had dropped by half after a competing program launched with younger, able-bodied instructors. The review that hurt most came from a former student. "While Ms. Chen clearly knows ballet, it's difficult to fully engage with someone who can't demonstrate the movements being discussed." She sat in her apartment, staring at her laptop screen, until the words blurred. The heating system, recently fixed by Marcus, hummed steadily, a sound that now reminded her of both stability and change. Her savings, carefully managed since the accident, wouldn't last forever. The insurance company had started sending letters questioning the necessity of some of her medical treatments. Emma's afternoon lessons became a bright spot for both of them, though they carried their own kind of pain. Today, the 8-year-old arrived bubbling with news about her school's upcoming dance recital. "Jenny says I can borrow her old costume," Emma explained, demonstrating a wobbly pirouette. "But I need new tights and real ballet shoes for the performance. Daddy said maybe next month, but I heard him talking about certification," Sarah finished, recognizing the worry beneath Emma's chatter. She'd seen Marcus's tired eyes, noticed how his work uniform looked more worn each week. The same pride that drove him to excel at his job kept him from accepting help or admitting struggle. That evening, as Marcus made his maintenance rounds, he found an envelope. Had been slipped under the workshop door. Inside was a pair of new ballet shoes, sized perfectly for Emma, with a note in Sarah's elegant handwriting. "Every dancer needs proper tools. Please let me do this small thing." He stood there holding the shoes, emotions warring inside him. The same pride that made it hard to accept help reminded him of the prosthetics taking shape beneath the tarp in the corner, his own attempt at giving someone the tools they needed. The final blow came late that night. The workshop's overhead light flickered and died as Marcus worked on a crucial joint assembly. When he went to replace it, he found a notice taped to the electrical box: "Basement workspace to be converted to storage. Clear out by end of month." Upstairs, Emma slept peacefully, her new ballet shoes placed carefully beside her bed. She'd been practicing her steps for hours, delighting in the proper support and grip they provided. Marcus watched her from the doorway, his mind racing through alternatives. The prosthetics were maybe 2 months from completion. If everything went perfectly, if he could find another workspace, if he could somehow afford the remaining materials. Sarah, he too, lay awake in her apartment, her computer open to a half-written email declining to teach the next semester's online course. On her screen, another window showed research into prosthetic limb innovations, a topic that had increasingly consumed her late-night hours. She'd recognized the mechanical drawings visible on Marcus's workbench during Emma's lessons, had seen the hope and determination in his tired eyes. Now, as her own professional world contracted, she found herself increasingly drawn to understanding the technical aspects of movement she'd once taken for granted. The discovery happened on a Tuesday evening, during what should have been another routine lesson with Emma. Sarah had arrived early to the basement workshop, where they'd relocated their sessions after the apartment's heating had acted up again. The space smelled of metal shavings and hope, a scent Sarah had come to associate with Marcus's quiet competence. "Hello?" she called out, wheeling herself into the familiar space. "Emma must be running late from school." The workshop lights were on, but no one answered. Sarah was about to leave when a draft caught the edge of the tarp in the corner, lifting it just enough to reveal a gleam of polished metal. Her hands moved automatically, pulling her wheelchair closer. Something about that metallic shine called, to her, familiar yet strange. When she lifted the tarp's edge, the breath caught in her throat. There, laid out on the workbench with the precision of a surgeon's instruments, were the components of prosthetic legs. But unlike any she'd seen, during her rehabilitation, these were different, lighter, more elegant. The joints were engineered with a dancer's range of motion in mind. The carbon fiber components curved, like the lines of a graceful arabesque. Scattered around them were dozens of technical drawings, each marked with meticulous notes in Marcus's distinctive handwriting. "Ms. Chen!" Emma's voice from the doorway startled Sarah so badly she dropped the tarp. "You're not supposed to... Daddy said it was a secret." Marcus appeared behind his daughter, tool belt still around his waist, his face a complex mixture of emotions. "Emma, honey, why don't you go upstairs and start your homework? Ms. Chen and I need to talk." After Emma reluctantly departed, silence filled the workshop. Sarah's fingers gripped her wheelchair's arms, knuckles white with tension. "How long?" she finally asked, since about a month after Emma's lessons started. Marcus moved to the workbench, carefully folding back the tarp to reveal his project. In full. "I know I should have asked, should have told you, but I wasn't sure I could actually do it, wasn't sure I had the right." "The right to what? To give me false hope?" Sarah's voice cracked on the last words. "Do you know how many doctors, how many specialists told me I'd never dance again? I've read their reports." Marcus gestured to a stack of medical journals on his desk. "I've studied every paper I could find on prosthetic limbs and dance biomechanics. I'm not trying to promise miracles, Sarah. I'm just trying to give movement back its music." The phrase, so similar to something she used to tell her students, struck her deeply. Sarah wheeled closer to the workbench, really looking at the design now. Her trained eye recognized elements she'd never seen in traditional prosthetics. Flex points that would allow for proper turnout, ankle assemblies designed for releve, carbon fiber patterns that mimicked the natural lines of a dancer's legs. You did all this? A maintenance man with no medical training? A maintenance man who spent 20 years understanding how things work, how they move, how they break, and how they can be fixed. Marcus picked up one of the joint assemblies. Every building has its own rhythm, its own balance points. The human body isn't so different, just more complex, more beautiful in its engineering. Sarah reached out, her fingers hovering over the curved metal that could become part of her. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, adjusting a component with absent precision. "Because every time Emma learns a new position, you teach her with your whole soul, even though it must hurt to watch. Because you gave my daughter ballet shoes when I couldn't. Because sometimes fixing things is about more than just making them work again. It's about making them sing." Tears slid down Sarah's cheeks as she traced the lines of what could be, her future. "These might not work," she said softly. "I might not be strong enough, might not be able to. Then we'll try something else. But I've watched you teach Emma. Your body remembers every movement, holds every line. These legs won't make you a dancer again, Sarah. You never stopped being one." The failed prototypes accumulated in a corner of the workshop, each one a lesson written in metal and carbon fiber. Sarah had taken to spending her evenings there, her wheelchair pulled up to the workbench beside Marcus, her dancer's knowledge, transforming his technical understanding into something more nuanced, more alive. "The ankle joint needs more lateral flexibility," she explained, demonstrating the motion with her hands. "In a proper releve, there's a moment of adjustment, a micro-movement that helps maintain balance. Without that," she gestured to the latest prototype, which had buckled during testing. Marcus nodded, already sketching modifications. His original designs, he'd learned, had been too focused on power and stability. Sarah taught him about the subtle articulations that made dance possible, the countless tiny adjustments that happened between the grand movements. "It's like the building's heating system," he mused, earning a curious look from Sarah. "Everyone thinks it's just about pushing hot air through pipes, but it's really about understanding the way heat moves, how it flows differently through different spaces. Dance is like that. It's not just about the big movements, it's about all the little flows in between." They worked late into the night, Emma often curled up on the workshop couch with her homework, occasionally offering observations that made both adults pause and reconsider their approach. "When I'm spinning," she'd say, "it feels like my feet are having a conversation with the floor." Such insights would send Sarah and Marcus back to the drawings, trying to engineer that conversation into metal and composite. The challenges seemed endless. Each solution revealed new problems. Each breakthrough led to unexpected complications. The prosthetics needed to be lightweight enough for quick movements, but strong enough to support landing from jumps. They needed to flex in multiple directions, while maintaining perfect stability, and they needed to somehow translate Sarah's intentions into fluid motion. "It's not working," Marcus muttered one night, after the 7th iteration of the ankle assembly failed stress testing. Tools scattered across the workbench, hours of careful adjustment undone in a moment of material failure. Maybe the doctors were right. Maybe this is beyond what's possible with current technology. Sarah wheeled closer, picking up the failed component. "Tell me what you see here," she said, holding it up to the light. "Tell me what you see as an engineer." "I see metal fatigue at the stress points. The carbon fiber layering isn't distributing force properly. The joint angles are—" He stopped as Sarah held up her hand. "Now tell me what you see as a father watching his daughter dance." Marcus's expression softened. "I see Emma doing her first proper pirouette last week. The way her whole face lit up when she found her balance. And what did you do when she fell trying to do it again? Helped her up. Showed her how to spot her turns better. adjusted her, his eyes widened, adjusted her position to better distribute her weight. Sarah smiled. Every dancer falls, every performance has its imperfect moments, but we adjust, we adapt, we find new ways to express the movement. She turned the failed component in her hands. This isn't a failure, Marcus. It's just teaching us how to dance better. They stayed late that night, redesigning the ankle assembly from scratch. Sarah demonstrated movements with her hands, explaining the subtle weight shifts and balance points that years of dance had ingrained in her muscle memory. Marcus translated these insights into technical solutions, his maintenance man's understanding of systems and structures merging with her artistic knowledge. Emma watched them work. Her math. Homework forgotten. It's like you're dancing together, she observed sleepily. Daddy does the steps and Ms. Chen does the music. The comment lingered in the air between them, carrying meanings neither was quite ready to explore. Instead, they focused on the work, on the precise measurements and careful adjustments that might make the impossible possible. But something had shifted, like a dancer finding a new balance point, like a mechanism finally clicking into place. When the revised ankle assembly held under testing the next evening, their shared triumph felt like more than just a technical victory. Sarah's eyes shone as she watched the joint move through its full range of motion, responding with the kind of fluid precision she remembered from her dancing days. "It's listening," she whispered. "It's actually listening to what the movement wants to be." The old family photo album sat on Sarah's lap, its edges worn smooth from years of handling. Emma leaned against her wheelchair, eyes wide as she studied a photograph of a young woman in a maintenance uniform. Her dark curls exactly like Emma's own. "Your mom was a maintenance worker too?" Emma asked, looking up at Marcus, who stood quietly by the workbench. "That's how we met," he answered softly. "She could fix anything, taught me half of what I know about building systems. Carmen always said problems were just puzzles waiting to be solved." He smiled at the memory, though Sarah noticed the sadness lingering in his eyes. Is that why she went away? To solve puzzles somewhere else? Emma's question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken grief. Marcus knelt beside his daughter, gathering her close. "No, sweetheart. Remember what we talked about? Mom got very sick, and sometimes the doctors can't." His voice caught. "Sometimes. There are puzzles that can't be solved." Sarah watched them, her heart aching for this little family. She'd wondered about Emma's mother, had seen the ghost of loss in Marcus's careful parenting, in the way he sometimes looked at Emma as if memorizing every detail of her face. "She would have loved watching you dance," Marcus continued, brushing Emma's curls back from her face. "She used to say that maintaining a building was like a dance, every system moving in harmony, every repair a step in a bigger performance." Emma brightened at this connection. "Like what you're building for Miss Chen. Mom would have helped, right?" "She definitely would have," Marcus agreed. "Probably would have solved the ankle assembly problem in half the time." Sarah wheeled closer, turning to another page in the album. "Tell me more about her," she said gently. "I'd like to know the woman who helped shape the man who's trying to help me dance again." As Marcus shared stories about Carmen, Sarah noticed how the tension gradually left his shoulders. He spoke of their early days working together, of Carmen's brilliant problem-solving mind, of her dedication to understanding how things worked. The photos tracked their history. Carmen pregnant with Emma, Carmen teaching a toddling Emma to use a plastic wrench, Carmen in a hospital bed still smiling despite the illness that would take her just months later. The last thing she made, "Me promise," Marcus said, his voice barely above a whisper, "was that I'd never stop fixing things that mattered. Said it wasn't just about maintaining buildings, it was about maintaining hope." Emma had dozed off on the workshop couch, her new ballet shoes still on her feet. Sarah found herself sharing her own story, telling Marcus about the family pressure to become a doctor like her parents, about choosing dance instead, about the lonely years of proving herself on stage. "After the accident," she continued, My parents wanted me to move back home, to let them take care of everything, but that felt like giving up the independence I'd fought so hard for. So here I am, teaching dance theory online and—" She gestured to the prosthetics project, apparently inspiring unauthorized medical device engineering. Marcus chuckled softly. Carmen would have called it creative problem-solving outside traditional parameters. His expression grew serious. "I know this whole project might seem crazy, might not even work, but you're keeping your promise," Sarah finished. "Fixing things that matter." Their eyes met, holding a moment longer than necessary. Sarah felt something shift in the air between them, like the instant before a challenging dance sequence when, you know, everything depends on timing and trust. The moment broke when Emma stirred, mumbling something about ballet in her sleep. Marcus moved to cover her with the old blanket they kept in the workshop, his movements gentle and practiced. "You know," Sarah said, watching him with his daughter, "Carmen was right about maintenance being a dance. I've watched you these past months, with Emma, with the building, with this project. Every move you make is about keeping things in balance, about understanding the rhythm of what's needed." Marcus busied himself with the prosthetics, but Sarah caught the flush of color in his cheeks. "Speaking of rhythm," he said, clearly deflecting, "I think I've figured out how to improve the response time in the knee joint. If we adjust the tension here—" He demonstrated the modification. Sarah allowed the subject change, but something had fundamentally shifted in their relationship. As they worked late into the night, their technical discussion punctuated by shared glances and comfortable silences, she realized that perhaps they were all engaging in a kind of maintenance, maintaining hope, maintaining dreams, maintaining the delicate balance between past and future, between loss and new beginnings. Marcus set up the video camera with trembling hands, trying to maintain his professional composure. The workshop had been transformed. Safety mats borrowed from Emma's school gymnasium covered the floor, parallel bars salvaged from a closing. Physical therapy office stood ready, and the latest version of the prosthetics gleamed under the fluorescent lights. "We don't have to do this today," he said, watching Sarah examine the legs with an expression he couldn't quite read. "If you need more time, 5 years." Sarah replied softly, running her fingers along the curved metal that mimicked a dancer's cuff. 5 years is enough time. But he noticed how her hands shook slightly as she touched the prosthetics that could change everything. They'd prepared meticulously. Sarah's physical therapist had reviewed the designs, suggesting modifications for optimal muscle engagement. They'd practiced the attachment process dozens of times, perfecting the sequence of movements needed to secure the prosthetics properly. Still, nothing could fully prepare them for this moment. "Ready?" Marcus knelt beside Sarah's wheelchair, the camera recording every moment for later analysis. She nodded, and they began their carefully choreographed routine. The attachment process was intimate in ways neither had anticipated. Marcus's maintenance man's hands, usually so sure with tools and machinery, moved with extraordinary gentleness. As he helped Sarah secure the prosthetics, each click of a fastener echoed in the quiet workshop like a heartbeat. "How do they feel?" he asked, checking the final connections. Sarah closed her eyes, concentrating on the sensation. "Like possibility," she whispered. Then, more practically, "The right one feels a bit tight near the top." Marcus made the adjustment, his movements precise and respectful. They'd developed their own language over the past months, a blend of technical terms and dance vocabulary that helped bridge the gap between what was and what could be. "Okay," Sarah said finally, gripping the parallel bars. "Let's dance." Marcus positioned himself beside her wheelchair, ready to assist. This part they'd rehearsed mentally dozens of times. The transfer, the initial weight-bearing, the first attempt at standing. But rehearsal was one thing. Reality was another. Sarah pushed herself up, arms trembling with effort. For a moment, she hung suspended between sitting and standing, between past and future. Marcus stood close, his hands hovering near but not touching her, respecting her need to do this herself while ensuring her safety. The prosthetics responded exactly as designed, the joints flexing and adjusting to distribute her weight. Sarah's face showed intense concentration as she found her balance point, the same expression Marcus had seen when she demonstrated complex dance positions to Emma. "The alignment feels good," she managed through gritted teeth. "The response. And time in the ankles. It's better than we hoped." Then slowly she began to straighten up. Marcus watched in awe as years of dancer's training asserted itself, her posture automatically adjusting, her core engaging, her body remembering what it meant to stand tall. The camera recorded it all, Sarah's first full standing position. In 5 years, the way she tested her weight distribution, the moment she released one hand from the parallel bars to touch her face, brushing away tears. "Marcus," she breathed, "I'm standing." He wanted to share her joy, to celebrate this victory, but his engineer's mind was already noting details for improvement. The slight delay in the left knee's response, the way the right ankle could use, a fraction more lateral support. Then Sarah smiled at him, really smiled, and all technical observations fled his mind. In that moment, she wasn't his project or his challenge. She was simply Sarah, a dancer, finding her way back to the light. They worked for another hour, Sarah taking tiny steps between the bars, Marcus documenting the prosthetic's performance while providing steady encouragement. When she finally settled back into her wheelchair, exhausted but glowing, they watched the video footage together. "Look at that pivot point," Marcus noted, pausing the playback. "We can improve the transition if we adjust the—" Sarah touched his arm, stopping him. "Marcus." Her voice was soft but firm. "For just a moment, can we not think about improvements? Can we just appreciate this miracle?" He looked at her then, really looked at her, and saw what he'd been missing in his focus on technical perfection. Sarah's eyes shone with a light he'd never seen before, a combination of triumph and possibility, and something else he wasn't quite ready to name. "Emma's going to be sorry she missed this," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "No," Sarah smiled, squeezing his hand. "This was right. Just us. Just this first step. There will be many more steps. Many more. Moments for Emma to see. This one," she looked at their joined hands, "this one was ours." The eviction notice arrived on a Thursday morning, its official letterhead stark against the workshop's cluttered desk. Marcus read it 3 times, each word landing like a physical blow. "Workshop space to be cleared within 48 hours. All contents to be removed. Non-compliance will result in disposal of remaining items." He looked around the space that had become so much more than a maintenance workshop. Sarah's wheelchair left subtle marks on the floor near the workbench. Emma's drawings decorated one wall, sketches of her father building magic legs, of Sarah dancing again. The prosthetics themselves lay half-assembled, so close to their final refinements. The building's new management company had sold the basement space to a storage company. No exceptions, no extensions, no negotiations. Marcus's years of service meant nothing in the face of corporate efficiency. Upstairs, the rent increase notice for his apartment waited in his mailbox, along with Emma's school invoice for next semester's activities. The certification program's final payment was due next week. The walls of his carefully balanced life were closing in, and for the first time since Carmen's death, Marcus felt truly afraid. He was still staring at the notice when Sarah arrived for their afternoon session. She read his expression before, seeing the paper in his hands. "What's wrong?" "They're taking the workshop." His voice sounded distant to his own ears. 2 days to clear everything out. The new company wants to install storage units. Sarah wheeled closer, taking the notice from his unresisting fingers. "But the prosthetics. We're so close to the final adjustments. Where will you—" "I don't know." Marcus sank onto the workshop stool, the weight of multiple crises pressing down on him. The apartment rent's going up too. Emma's school fees, the certification costs. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Sarah had come to recognize as his tell for deep distress. I can't lose this job. Emma needs stability, She needs her father to stop carrying everything alone. Sarah interrupted firmly. She pulled a folder from her bag, one she'd brought today with nervous determination. I've been working on something. I wasn't sure how to bring it up, but now, she handed him the folder. Look at this. Inside was a proposal for a foundation. Preliminary paperwork already filled out. The mission statement caught his eye: to provide innovative prosthetic solutions for dancers and athletes, combining engineering expertise with artistic understanding. I don't understand, Marcus said, turning pages filled with grant possibilities. Potential donors, partnership opportunities. My parents weren't just doctors, they were medical investors. They've been begging me to get involved in healthcare innovation since the accident. Sarah moved closer, her eyes intense. What you've created here, Marcus, it's not just about helping me dance again. It could help others too, but we need proper funding, proper space. Sarah, I'm a maintenance man with a workshop hobby. I can't run a foundation. No, she agreed, but you can be the lead engineer while I handle the business side. My parents' connections, your innovation, my understanding of dancers' needs. She touched his hand. We could help so many people, Marcus, and, she added softly, we could pay you what you're actually worth. The possibility hung in the air between them. Dazzling but daunting. It's too much risk, he protested weakly. Emma needs security, not her father chasing impossible dreams. What does Emma see when she watches you work on these prosthetics? Sarah challenged. She sees her father refusing to accept limitations, fighting to help others, creating something beautiful from nothing but hope and determination. That's the security she needs, knowing that dreams are worth fighting for. Marcus looked at the prosthetics on his workbench, thinking of all the late nights, the careful adjustments, the moment Sarah first stood. If it failed, then we'd fail trying to do something extraordinary, Sarah finished. Just like every dancer risks falling every time they leap. But oh, Marcus. Her eyes shone with tears and conviction. Think of how beautiful the dance and could be. The eviction notice lay forgotten on the desk as they bent over the proposal together, hope rising like music in the cluttered workshop that had brought them to this moment of choice. The theatre rental agreement lay unsigned on the small table between them, its formal language a stark contrast to the intimate atmosphere of Sarah's apartment. Outside, evening settled over the city, but neither Sarah nor Marcus had moved to turn on the lights, letting the growing darkness match their serious mood. The Spencer Theatre, Marcus read from the contract. 3 weeks from now. Sarah, that's perfect timing, she finished, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. The foundation paperwork will be complete, the prosthetics will be ready, and she took a deep breath. It's the anniversary of my accident. Marcus looked up, sharply. Is that why you chose it? Partly. Sarah wheeled to her window where city lights were beginning to twinkle like stars. 5 years ago I thought I'd never dance again. Now! She turned back to face him, her expression fierce with determination. Now I want to show everyone that some endings are just different beginnings. The plan had come to her during their last workshop session, watching Emma practice her recital routine. The girl had stumbled, recovered, then incorporated the stumble into her dance, as if it had been intentional all along. Sometimes mistakes make the dance better, Emma had announced, and Sarah had felt something click into place in her mind. It won't be a traditional performance, she explained to Marcus now. I want to tell the whole story, from the accident to this moment, show the struggle, the adaptation, the beauty in learning to dance differently. She moved to her desk, pulling out preliminary choreography notes. See these transition points. They're designed to highlight the prosthetics' capabilities while acknowledging their limitations. It's not about pretending nothing changed. It's about celebrating the change itself. Marcus studied the notes, his engineer's mind already calculating stress points and load distributions. The spinning sequence here, he pointed to a particular notation, will need to modify the ankle assembly to handle the torque. Can you do it in time? His eyes met hers. I'll find a way. The words carried the weight of every late night, every careful adjustment, every shared moment of triumph and frustration. The temporary workshop they'd rented wasn't as convenient as the basement space had been, but it came with something more valuable: possibility. Sarah's parents had provided the initial funding to secure it, along with their cautious blessing for the foundation project. It's not the medical career we imagined for you, her father had said, but maybe it's the one you were meant for. Emma had adapted to the new space with characteristic enthusiasm, declaring that it looked more like a real inventor's lab. She'd even created a sign for the door, the place where dancing dreams come true, decorated with wobbly stars and musical notes. We should invite everyone, Emma declared now, bursting into the apartment with her ballet bag. Mrs. Henderson says she's never seen real ballet, and Mr. Patel from 5C said he'd bring his famous samosas and— Slow down, princess, Marcus laughed, but Sarah was already nodding. She's right. This isn't just about launching the foundation or showcasing the technology. It's about community, all the people who've been part of this journey without even knowing it. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through her contacts. My old dance company would help with the technical aspects of staging. Some of them have been asking to visit anyway. And my old ballet teachers, Emma added excitedly. They could see what Daddy built and how Ms. Chen is going to dance again, and we need to consider security, Marcus interjected gently. Insurance, medical personnel on standby, if anything went wrong. It won't. Sarah's voice was soft but certain. Because this performance isn't about perfection, it's about possibility. About showing that broken things can be rebuilt into something new and beautiful. She reached for his hand. Just like someone taught me. They worked late into the night, planning sequences, calculating risks, dreaming possibilities. Emma fell, asleep on Sarah's couch, her ballet shoes clutched to her chest. Looking at her daughter, Marcus felt the familiar ache of missing Carmen mixed with something new. The sense that their little family had somehow expanded, grown into something different, but no less precious. 3 weeks, Sarah murmured, making final notes on the rental agreement. 3 weeks to change everything. No, Marcus corrected quietly. Everything already changed. 3 weeks to show the world how. The smell of garlic and ginger filled Sarah's apartment as Marcus stirred the wok, following Carmen's old recipe written in her precise handwriting. Emma sat at the counter, carefully measuring sauce ingredients, while Sarah chopped vegetables, with the same precision she once used to mark out dance steps on a stage. These impromptu family dinners had become more frequent as performance preparations intensified. Tonight's meal was a welcome break from long hours of rehearsal and technical adjustments, though shop drawings and choreography notes still covered half the dining table. Mom used to say cooking is like dancing, Emma commented, adding measured spoonfuls of soy sauce to the bowl. You have to feel the rhythm and trust your instincts. Sarah caught Marcus's slight pause in his stirring, saw the gentle smile that always appeared when Emma shared memories of Carmen. These days, the memories seemed to bring more warmth than pain, as if joy was slowly reclaiming territory once held by grief. Your mom was right, Sarah said, sliding her perfectly diced carrots into a bowl. It's all about timing and partnership. She glanced at Marcus, their eyes meeting briefly before both looked away, suddenly conscious of the layers of meaning in her words. The prosthetics project had transformed their relationship in ways neither had anticipated. Hours of working together had created an intimacy that went beyond their professional collaboration. They'd developed a shorthand of gestures and half-finished sentences, could read each other's moods in the smallest shifts of expression. Dad, "You're doing that thing again," Emma announced, breaking their moment of mutual awareness. "What thing?" Marcus asked, turning back to the wok. "That thing where you and Ms. Chen look at each other like you're having a whole conversation without talking." Emma's matter-of-fact observation hung in the air, carrying the simple clarity of a child's perception. Sarah busied herself with the table settings, grateful her wheeled position hid her flushed cheeks. Marcus cleared his throat, mumbling something about checking the rice. After dinner, Emma sprawled on the couch with her homework, while Sarah and Marcus cleared the table, moving around each other with the same unconscious coordination they'd developed in the workshop. "Carmen would have loved this recipe," Sarah said softly, passing Marcus a plate to dry. "The balance of flavors is perfect." She was always adjusting it, trying to get it exactly right. Marcus smiled at the memory, kind of like how we keep tweaking the prosthetic's calibration. "Is that why you became a maintenance man? Because you like getting things exactly right?" Marcus considered this as he dried another plate. "Partly, but mostly because I like making things work better, fixing what's broken." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "After Carmen died, that became even more important. If I could fix everything else, maybe it would help fix us too." Sarah reached for his hand, her fingers still damp from the dishwater. "Some things can't be fixed, Marcus, but they can be rebuilt, made into something new." Their fingers intertwined on the counter, neither acknowledging the contact directly, but neither pulling away. From the living room came the sound of Emma, humming her recital music as she worked on her math problems. "I'm scared, Sarah," Marcus admitted quietly. "Not just about the performance or the foundation. About—" He squeezed her hand gently. "This, us. Emma's already lost one mother. If this doesn't work—" "Hey," Sarah tugged his hand until he turned to face her. "First of all, I'm not trying to replace Carmen. Emma's memories of her mother are precious, and they always will be. But maybe—" She took a deep breath. "Maybe there's room for new memories too, new kinds of family." Marcus knelt beside her wheelchair, their joined hands resting in her lap. "When did you know," he asked, "that this was becoming more than just a project? Remember? That night, when the ankle assembly finally worked. When you said the joint was dancing with gravity instead of fighting it." Sarah smiled at the memory. "That's when I realized you didn't just understand the mechanics of movement. You understood. It's poetry too. For me," Marcus said slowly, "it was watching you teach Emma, seeing how you never let her give up, how you helped her find her own way to move through the world. Just like—" He swallowed hard. "Just like Carmen would have done." From the living room, Emma's voice interrupted their moment. "If you're done being mushy in there, can someone help me with fractions?" They broke apart with quiet laughter, the tension of the moment dissolving into comfortable warmth. As Marcus moved to help Emma, Sarah watched them together, thinking about all the different ways people could dance through life. Sometimes in pairs, sometimes alone, sometimes in new combinations that defied traditional choreography. The prosthetics project had started as an attempt to rebuild her dancing career. Somewhere along the way, it had become about rebuilding something far more fundamental, the human capacity for connection, for adaptation, for love in all its unexpected forms. The local newspaper article started small, a human interest story buried on page 6. "Maintenance man builds hope, a modern fairy tale," read the headline above a photo of Marcus at his workbench. Sarah had worried the story might seem exploitative, but the journalist, Mrs. Henderson's niece, had captured something genuine about their journey. By sunset, Sarah's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Local TV stations wanted interviews. Dance companies from 3 states asked about the foundation. Her inbox filled with messages from other dancers facing similar challenges, each story an echo of her own struggles. "Did you see?" Emma burst into the workshop after school, brandishing her tablet. "We're trending. Jenny's mom shared the article. And now everyone's sharing it, and there's all these comments about how it's like a movie." Marcus looked up from the prosthetic's final calibration, his expression a mix of pride and uncertainty. Maybe we should have waited until after the performance to go public. Too late now, Sarah said, wheeling over to show him her phone. The theatre's already gotten calls about tickets. They want to know if we're planning additional shows. The attention brought unexpected challenges. Equipment suppliers, hearing about the project, sent proposals for partnerships. Medical technology firms requested meetings. Sarah's parents called with both congratulations and concerns about liability issues. We need to be careful, Marcus said that evening, after Emma had gone home with Ms. Martinez. If we make promises, we can't keep. We're not promising miracles, Sarah interrupted, reaching for his hand. We're showing what's possible when people refuse to accept limitations. She smiled, remembering his words from months ago, when they keep fixing things that matter. The building's residents had become their unofficial support team. Mrs. Henderson organized a phone tree to handle media inquiries. Mr. Patel, who worked in public relations, helped draft press statements. The teenagers from 4C created a social media strategy, teaching Marcus and Sarah about hashtags and viral marketing. But with visibility came vulnerability. A medical device manufacturer's blog questioned the safety of amateur prosthetics. A dance critic wondered publicly if the performance would be inspiration exploitation. Sarah's former dance company director called, voice careful with concern. Are you sure you're ready for this kind of exposure? The pressure began to show. In small ways, Marcus double-checked every component, worried that public scrutiny would find flaws in his design. Sarah pushed herself harder in rehearsals, determined to prove that this wasn't just a publicity stunt. Emma noticed the tension during their dinner at Sarah's apartment. You both look scared, she observed, setting down her fork. Like Jenny, before her piano recital. But remember what you told her, Miss Chen, that being scared means you're about to do something really brave. Sarah exchanged a look with Marcus, remembering all the quiet moments that had led them here. The late-night adjustments, the small victories, the shared dreams that had grown larger than they'd imagined. Your daughter, Sarah said softly, to Marcus, is becoming quite the philosopher. A knock at the door interrupted their meal. It was Mrs. Henderson, clutching a stack of papers. You need to see these, she said, spreading letters across the dining table. They've been arriving all day. The letters came from throughout the city. From dance students and their parents, from people with prosthetics, from engineers and artists and dreamers of all kinds. Each expressed the same essential message. Thank you for showing us what's possible. This one's my favorite, Mrs. Henderson said, holding up a crayon drawing from a 7-year-old girl. It showed a stick figure dancing on rainbow-colored legs. With the words, "Now I know I can dance too," written in wobbly letters, Marcus stared at the drawing for a long moment. I've been thinking about the wrong thing, he said finally, worrying about criticism, about technical perfection. But this, he touched the child's artwork gently, this is why we're doing it. Sarah wheeled closer, leaning against him. It's not just about me dancing again, is it? It's about everyone who needs to believe in possibility. Emma gathered the letters into a neat pile. Can we put these up in the workshop so you can see them while you're working? The next day, the workshop walls bloomed with hope. Letters, drawings, messages from strangers becoming part of their extended family of dreamers. The local news vans outside might come and go, but these paper witnesses would remain, reminding them that their private miracle had become a public promise. The foundation proposal draft covered Sarah's dining table, pages of legal documents interspersed with Marcus's technical drawings and letters from potential beneficiaries. Through the open window, spring air carried the scent of new beginnings, matching the mood of possibility in the room. The Thompson Chen Foundation for Adaptive Movement, Sarah read from the mission statement. Are you sure about putting your name first? Marcus looked up from where he was reviewing equipment costs. I told you, it should be just Chen. I'm just the maintenance man who who revolutionized prosthetic design for dancers, Sarah interrupted firmly. Besides, Emma pointed out that Thompson Chen sounds like a dance step, out of the mouths of babes, right? They'd been working on the foundation structure for weeks, trying to transform their shared vision into something concrete. Sarah's parents had connected them with medical technology experts and non-profit advisors. Marcus's practical knowledge of building systems had surprisingly translated well into building organizational frameworks. "Look at this," Sarah said, wheeling to her laptop. "Another inquiry from a gymnastics program in Seattle. They have 3 athletes who could benefit from custom prosthetics." She pulled up a video of a young gymnast working on the balance beam, her determination visible even through the grainy footage. "This is why we need to think bigger than just dance." Marcus moved to watch over her shoulder, his presence warm and steady behind her. "The basic principles could be adapted for different sports. We'd need to modify the stress tolerances, adjust the response times." His voice took on the focused tone she'd come to love, the one that meant his mind was already solving problems. "That's not all," Sarah continued, opening another email. "A visual arts college wants to know if we could design prosthetics specifically for sculptors and painters, and there's a musician looking for legs that would let her operate piano pedals. Each case would need custom solutions," Marcus mused, already sketching ideas on a nearby notepad. "We'd need a proper workshop, testing facilities, and a staff," Sarah added. "Engineers, physical therapists, movement specialists." She pulled out a budget projection. "My parents' investment group is interested, but they want to see a sustainable business model." Emma looked up from her homework corner, where she'd been quietly drawing. "Will you help kids too? Because Lily in my class has a prosthetic arm, but she says it's hard to do art projects with it." Marcus and Sarah exchanged a look, their personal journey expanding yet again through a child's perspective. "That's exactly the kind of problem we want to solve, Princess," Marcus said. "But it means we'll be very busy. Are you okay with sharing us with other families?" Emma considered this seriously. "As long as we still have dance lessons and family dinners, and—" She hesitated, then continued with 8-year-old directness. "As long as Sarah still comes to my recitals like a real mom would." The room fell silent. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes as Marcus knelt beside his daughter. "Emma, honey, we've talked about this. Sarah isn't trying to replace—" "I know," Emma interrupted. "Mom is mom. But Sarah's family too now, right? Different but still family. Like how her special legs will be different from regular legs, but still help her dance." Sarah wheeled closer, her heart full. "I'd be honored to come to all your recitals, Emma. And yes, we're family, in our own unique way." Marcus squeezed both their hands, then returned to the foundation paperwork with suspiciously bright eyes. "So, about the organizational structure." They worked late into the evening, their discussion flowing between technical specifications and broader dreams. The foundation wasn't just about prosthetics anymore. It was about reimagining what was possible, about building bridges between technology and art, about creating family in unexpected places. Sarah's phone buzzed with a message from her father. "Board member candidates list attached. Also, your mother wants to know if Emma has any food allergies for Sunday dinner." "They're really all in, aren't they?" Marcus said, reading over her shoulder. "The medical technology connections, the funding network, the—" He smiled. "Family dinners." "Scared," Sarah teased, but her eyes were serious. "Terrified," he admitted. "But the good kind of terrified, like right before you fix something that everyone said couldn't be fixed." Emma had fallen asleep on the couch, her latest drawing visible on the coffee table, a sketch of 3 figures in front of a building labeled Thompson Chen Foundation, with dozens of stick figures dancing around them. "Look at that," Sarah said softly. "She drew me standing." "She's drawn you standing for months now," Marcus revealed. "Ever since the day I showed her the first designs. She never doubted it would work." Sarah studied the drawing, seeing it through new eyes. The three figures were holding hands, forming their own kind of dance. She saw us too, didn't she? This new pattern we're creating. In work, in life, in love. Smart kid, Marcus murmured, bending to kiss Sarah's temple. Must get it from her mother. Then, after a thoughtful pause, all of her mothers. The Spencer Theatre's rehearsal space hummed with focused energy 1 week before the performance. Sarah moved through her warm-up routine as Marcus made minute adjustments to the prosthetics, their practice choreography of preparation as intimate as any pas de deux. The left ankles responding a microsecond slower on the releve transition, Sarah noted, executing another careful rise. Years of performance experience blended with her new technical knowledge, giving her feedback a precision that Marcus had come to rely on. Could be the temperature difference in the theatre, he mused, reaching for his tools. The calibration was perfect in the workshop, but this space is cooler. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, each adjustment backed by countless hours of refinement. From the wings, Emma watched with their small support team, Sarah's former dance partner Michael, who'd volunteered to spot her more challenging sequences, Dr. Rivera, their consulting physical therapist, and Mrs. Henderson, who'd appointed herself unofficial stage manager. Remember, Dr. Rivera called out, as Sarah prepared to attempt a complex turn sequence, you're not just testing the prosthetics, you're testing a whole new way of moving. Listen to your body's limits. Sarah nodded, but Marcus caught the familiar determination in her eyes. It was the same look she'd had during their first standing session, the same fierce hope that had carried them through months of trial and error. Ready? Michael moved into position, his hands hovering near but not touching Sarah's waist. They'd discovered that traditional partner support points needed rethinking with the prosthetics, leading to modified choreography that highlighted this new form of dance. The music began, a piece specially composed for the performance, weaving classical themes with contemporary rhythms. Sarah initiated the turn sequence, her upper body flowing with inherited grace, while the prosthetics responded to her movements with mechanical precision. 1 turn, 2, 3. Marcus held his breath, engineering mind cataloguing every microsecond of response time. On the 4th turn, the left ankle caught slightly, throwing off Sarah's rhythm. She stumbled, Michael stepping in smoothly to steady her. I'm fine, she said before anyone could speak, but Marcus was already moving forward, tools ready. No, really, she insisted, running her hands over the prosthetics. That was my error, not the equipment. I rushed the transition. Sarah, Marcus started, recognizing the strain in her voice. We have 1 week, she cut him off. 1 week to prove this isn't just a publicity stunt or a feel-good story. 1 week to show every disabled dancer out there that their dreams don't have to end. I need to nail this sequence. Emma approached from the wings, her small face serious. Ms. Chen, remember what you told me about my recital? How being perfect isn't as important as being real? Sarah's expression softened as Marcus hid a smile. Their daughter had an uncanny ability to cut through tension with simple wisdom. Besides, Emma continued, isn't this performance supposed to show how you dance differently now? So maybe the dance should be different too. Michael snapped his fingers. She's right, Sarah. What if we modify the sequence? Instead of fighting the prosthetic's natural pause between turns, we incorporate it. Make it part of the choreography, a moment of suspension that highlights the unique beauty of this new form of movement. The suggestion sparked a flurry of activity. Marcus made notes about the ankle's behavior, while Sarah and Michael experimented with timing. Dr. Rivera offered insights about weight distribution, and Mrs. Henderson documented everything with meticulous attention to detail. Hours later, as the rehearsal space emptied, Sarah remained at the bar, slowly working through fundamental positions. Marcus packed his tools, watching her in the mirror. I know that look, he said softly. You're wondering if it's enough. Sarah met his eyes in the reflection. Everything's different. The way I move, the way I feel the music, the way I understand space. I used to dance from here. She touched her feet, then her heart. Now I dance from everywhere. Mind, body, spirit, even these beautiful machines you've built. But will they understand? Marcus moved behind her, placing his hands on her shoulders. They'll understand because you'll show them, not just the dance, but the journey. Every modified step, every adapted movement, it's all part of the story we're telling. Our story, Sarah corrected, reaching up to cover his hand with hers. Speaking of which, she nodded toward the wings where Emma had fallen asleep on. A pile of practice mats, her own ballet shoes clutched to her chest. Marcus gazed at their daughter, and his heart skipped at how naturally he now thought of her as theirs. Before turning back to Sarah, 1 week, he echoed her earlier words, but with anticipation rather than anxiety. 1 week to show the world what we've built together, the foundation, the dance. He squeezed her shoulders gently. The family. Sarah rose en pointe, the prosthetics responding smoothly to her command, lifting her into a perfect balance between what was and what could be. Then let's make it count, she said, and began to dance again, writing their future in movement. The Spencer Theatre hummed with anticipation, every seat filled, the air electric with possibility. Backstage, Sarah sat in her wheelchair one last time, letting Marcus make his final adjustments to the prosthetics. His hands moved with familiar tenderness, each touch a combination of technical precision and intimate understanding. Everything's perfect, he murmured, but continued checking anyway. Sarah covered his busy hands with hers, stilling them. Marcus, she said softly, it's time to stop fixing and start believing. In her dressing room mirror, she could see Emma in her special junior stagehand outfit, proudly wearing the Thompson Chen Foundation badge that matched the ones given to all their team members. The girl was practically vibrating with excitement. As she helped Mrs. Henderson organize the performance notes, the prosthetics gleamed under the dressing room lights, no longer looking like medical devices or mechanical substitutes, but like extensions of Sarah's art, sculptural elements that would help tell their story. Marcus had outdone himself with the final design, incorporating subtle dance-inspired curves that made them look less like assistive devices and more like works of art. Places in 5 minutes, Michael called from the doorway. He'd been rock solid. Through rehearsals, adapting his partner work to complement Sarah's new way of moving. Now he gave her an encouraging nod. The house is full. He even saw some representatives from major dance companies in the audience. Sarah closed her eyes, centering herself. When she opened them, she found Marcus watching her with that look that still made her heart skip. Part wonder, part pride, all love. Ready? He asked. Ready. The transition from wheelchair to standing had become smoother with practice, but tonight it felt particularly significant. As Sarah rose, supported briefly by Marcus before finding her balance, she felt the weight of every moment that had led them here, every late night in the workshop, every failed prototype, every small victory. The theatre lights dimmed. From the wings, Sarah could see Emma clutching Mrs. Henderson's hand, both of them teary-eyed already. Dr. Rivera stood ready with the medical team, though his expression showed more excitement than concern. The foundation board members, including Sarah's parents, sat in the front row, her father already dabbing at his eyes with a handkerchief. The music began, soft, hesitant notes that echoed Sarah's first tentative steps after the accident. She moved into the spotlight alone, her entrance deliberately showing the mechanical precision of the prosthetics. This wasn't about hiding her disability or pretending nothing had changed. This was about dancing with change itself. The first sequence was technically simple, but emotionally complex. Movements that demonstrated the meeting point between flesh and machine, between what was lost and what was found. Sarah felt the prosthetics responding perfectly, Marcus's engineering harmonizing with her artistry in ways that still amazed her. As the music built, Michael joined her on stage. Their modified pas de deux drew gasps from the audience as they transformed traditional ballet partnering into something new. Where once he would have lifted her, now they created counterbalances. Where traditional techniques wouldn't work, they'd invented new ones. The pivotal moment came during the turn sequence that had worried them in rehearsals. Sarah began the turns, feeling the subtle pause in the left ankle that they'd transformed from flaw to feature. One turn, two, three. On the fourth, she let the prosthetic's natural rhythm guide her into a moment of suspended balance that hadn't existed in classical ballet before this night. The audience's collective intake of breath told her they understood. This wasn't just dance adapted to limitations, but dance evolving into new forms of beauty. As the performance built to its climax, Sarah felt herself moving beyond technique, beyond conscious thought. The prosthetics had become truly part of her, responding to her impulses like natural extensions of her artist's soul. She danced her journey, the loss, the discovery, the love that had helped rebuild not just her body, but her heart. The final sequence was a solo, deliberately echoing the classical variations she'd performed before the accident, but transformed into something both familiar and revolutionary. As she moved through the steps that Marcus had helped make possible, she felt the years of separation from her art falling away. When the music ended, Sarah held her final pose, balanced en pointe, arms lifted in both triumph and offering. For a moment, the theatre held its breath, then Emma's voice broke the silence. "That's my mom!" The spell broke, and the audience erupted. As applause thundered through the theatre, Sarah felt tears streaming down her face. In the wings, Marcus stood with their daughter, both of them glowing with pride and joy. Sarah looked past the standing ovation toward her family, knowing that while the dance would end, their greatest performance, the art of building a life together, was just beginning. The Foundation's launch invitation featured a photograph that captured everything without showing any faces. A man's weathered hands adjusting a gleaming prosthetic limb, a child's small fingers holding ballet shoes, a woman's elegant arm reaching upward in a dance pose. Below the image, the words spoke their promise to the world: Thompson Chen Foundation for Adaptive Movement, because every body can dance. 1 month after the performance, the former maintenance workshop had been transformed. Clean white walls displayed framed letters from their first supporters. Emma's crude drawings of magic legs hung proudly beside sophisticated technical blueprints, and a steady stream of visitors brought new challenges and possibilities. Sarah sat at her desk, no wheelchair needed today, with the latest version of the prosthetics responding like extensions of her own spirit, reviewing applications from their first round of potential beneficiaries. A young gymnast from Seattle, a martial artist from Boston, a violin teacher who wanted to stand while conducting her orchestra. "Dad! Ms. Chen, look what came!" Emma burst through the door, still in her school clothes, waving a letter. "I got the lead in the summer dance program, and—" She paused dramatically. "They want to know if you'll both speak at the opening ceremony, about how dance can be different, but still beautiful." Marcus appeared from his new engineering lab, tools still in hand. "That's wonderful, Princess." He shared a smile with Sarah, both remembering their own first performance just weeks ago. The Foundation's success had exceeded their hopes. Medical technology firms sought partnerships, dance companies requested consultations, and their inbox overflowed with stories from people who saw their own possibilities reflected in Sarah's dance. "Did you show them your surprise?" Marcus asked Emma, who lit up and ran to her backpack. She returned with a carefully folded piece of paper, architectural plans for the Foundation's permanent home. The building would house engineering labs, dance studios, and a small theatre, all designed to celebrate and explore adaptive movement. "Look," Emma pointed to a detail in the plans. "There's a special workshop space, like your old one, but bigger. And the theatre has stars on the ceiling, like the ones we used to draw. And she traced the foundation's logo, now featured prominently on the facade. Our whole family's name is there. Sarah felt Marcus's hand slip into hers as they watched. The daughter explained her vision for their future. The simple gesture carried echoes of every late night in the workshop, every small victory. Every moment of doubt transformed into determination. "Speaking of family," Sarah said, squeezing Marcus's hand, "how would you feel about making it official, all of us?" Emma's squeal of delight drowned out Marcus's more composed response, but his shining eyes and swift kiss told Sarah everything she needed to know. Later that evening, as they watched Emma practice her dance routine in the Foundation studio, Sarah leaned against Marcus and whispered, "Thank you for fixing what mattered." "No," he corrected softly. "Thank you for showing me that sometimes the most beautiful fixes aren't repairs at all. They're transformations into something entirely new." Above them, stars twinkled through the studio skylight, dancing their own eternal choreography, witnesses to the endless possibilities of love, determination, and the courage to move in new ways through the world.